So let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Hey, kiddo, it's about time for bed, okay?
Okay.
Well, remember, there's a box in the corner over there with all the pornographic material that's ever been made in the world, even the really weird stuff that could scar you for life. I'm trusting you not to look in there, okay?
Okay.
Right. That's an ad talking about the dangers of, obviously, of smartphone use and social media ban for kids. Is that coming? Do you want that to happen? Australia has it. They went ahead and did it. Everybody 16 and under, no kid in Australia can use that. Doesn't matter what the parents want. Do you want that here? 1-866-408-7669.
Number 2.
It was a very unsatisfying briefing. I asked Secretary Hegseth, would he let every member of Congress see the unedited videos of the September 2nd strike? His answer, we have to study it.
Chuck Schumer pretending as if it matters. Venezuela showdown, stare down, putting pressure on all sides as Dems demand to see a game plan. And Trump says Maduro's days are numbered.
Number 1.
I wonder what grade you would give.
A plus.
A plus.
Yeah, A plus, 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 plus. The word affordability. Prices are coming down substantially. It's been 10 months. It's amazing what we've done.
President Trump is back on stage talking economic gains and game plans. As the numbers show, the public is impatient with progress or lack thereof. Is this the path to turning it all around as he hones his message and essentially is this: Biden broke it, I'm trying to fix it. And that's what he was saying last night for over 2 hours. And I flipped around. I think people initially started with it. We're the only ones to stick with it. It basically plowed through almost all of Jesse's show and most of the Ingram angle. Here's President Trump yesterday on stage talking about what his priorities are. Cut 5.
And I have no higher priority than making America affordable again. That's what we're going to do. And again, they caused the high prices and we're bringing them down. It's a simple message. If I had one message tonight, this is being covered like all over the world. This is crazy because I haven't made a speech in a little while. When you win, you say, I can now rest.
Right. So he went on. He had a big message. He had people come up, a waitress come up and talk about how great it's going to be, no taxes on tips. And then he had somebody talk about overtime. A blue-collar worker came up and said, well, what great it is, I'm not getting taxed on overtime. And then people and businesses are going to get big rebates when it comes to they build manufacturing plants. They're going to get a tax rebate retroactive back to the Biden years. So they feel this thing could really turn around in the first 2 quarters of next year. But listen to David Axelrod, a word of caution on CNN, cut 3.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I were his advisors, his political advisors, the people who actually go out and poll and do these things, I would be cringing watching this whole day unfold because this was an exercise in denial. You know what is plus, 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 plus? That's people looking at their bills. That's how they feel. You cannot jawbone people into feeling what their life experience is telling them isn't true.
See, a couple of things. He says, how am I doing on the economy? A++. The things he is doing economically, A++. He didn't say the economy is A++. What he's trying to do is get the drilling down, get the regulations down, start cutting international trade deals, start rebalancing our trade relationships, bringing in tariff revenue. But he's not saying what he was saying last week, and I think inartfully, saying this whole thing, affordability, is a hoax. It's a hoax because the Democrats are pretending like they didn't cause it. So I can't agree with that. But his polls show he's about 35% approval on the economy. But he's so strong economically with his knowledge and his team, I think it's almost as if you got off, I love my analogy, you got off the season, you have a high-powered offense like the Buffalo Bills have, Josh Allen. Let's say he opens up 1-4 and he's the 20th ranked team offense. If the whole team's healthy and they're just off to a bad start, don't worry, they're coming back. And I think that's what the president's doing, installing a new offense for 2026. And if it doesn't matter what he says on the stump. It doesn't matter what David Axelrod says in the studio. People won't respond. But if things begin to turn around, they go, yeah, that's what I remember. A guy going about to try to turn things around instead of flooding the zone with green energy, infrastructure about green energy and renewables, and about just giving money to people. Many of which you have to add toner to the printer to get it out. So that's a little of it. So lawmakers are going back and forth about Trump not knowing or not paying attention to what's happening. But yesterday was all about him understanding, people understanding that my foreign trips, everything I'm doing, the peace is one thing, but if I could stop spending on these wars, if I could stop having to arm Ukraine and the Israelis, we could start focusing here. Also, when he travels abroad, people were saying, he should be home, like Marjorie Taylor Greene on 60 Minutes. He wanted to make it clear exactly what happened on those trips. Cut 8.
Somebody complained that I was making a foreign trip. I went to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE. I brought back $4 trillion. They said, he should be traveling. He should focus on home. What the hell do you think I'm doing? And 250 Boeing jets. I brought back so much everything. Then they say, he should, the stupid people, they say, he should be leaving our country. Yeah, let's sit around and twiddle our thumbs. It's sort of crazy, right?
So this is what the president's saying is so important, but I'd go to the next step. So with that money, where is it? Well, it's going to go into data centers, let's say, in Baton Rouge. I'd go to Baton Rouge. Is there anything to see there? Yeah, they're framing out the data center. Anything to free? Yeah, they're interviewing people, plumbers and pipe fitters and electricians, and those are people going to be hired right away, and they got to start in about 3 weeks. Okay, go there. The other thing is Mr. President, you shut down the border. Now we don't see it at all. Even our guys, we pulled Bill Maloosia, we put him in Washington. There's nothing to do. So we put him in Washington. It was an elevation, so maybe that's something to do with it. But we have nobody replacing him because nothing's happening. Mr. President, you go down there. You talk to Border Patrol. Let's see this new wall that's being built, hammered in. Let's see the electronics involved in it. Most people are going to cover that. The trip down there, you're going to have a huge press corps. You get out, you look at that wall, you talk to different people, you talk to people in the border communities, any enterprising reporter in somewhat of a fair institution, like the Daily Mail or the Daily Wire or the Free Press, along with Fox. Anybody who does that trip would say, okay, let me go into some of these cities in Arizona. Let me go check out some of these cities in Texas. Let's see how they feel. If they feel additional security in the towns, are they no longer concerned about crime? What is it like? So he's going to be out there, but I would also put him out in smaller venues, not just in big settings. Susie Wiles did a rare interview, and she talked about what the president's going to be doing this year. Cut 14.
So many of those low propensity voters are Trump voters.
Yes, they are.
And we saw a week ago Tuesday what happens when he's not on the ballot and not active. So I haven't quite broken it to him yet, but he's going to campaign like it's 2024 again. He's certainly a turnout machine.
Yeah, and he's going to show up and he's going to do it. And I think with the everyday people that hop behind the microphone is going to be key. So we'll see. Blaming President Biden is not really going to be that effective these days, but pointing out the different policies. I would never even say the name Joe Biden again. I really don't. The president President Biden had such disdain for Trump, he never mentioned his name. But everybody knew he was bigger and more popular than Joe Biden ever was. But now that he's in there making decisions, it just brings people back down to a time when you really had somebody invisible in the Oval Office, and the president is so dramatically different than his approach. I would not even bring it up till JD and Marco Rubio and Youngkin and all these guys get on the stump and want to plead that, put their case out there to be the next president. So, and we'll talk more about that. When we come back, I want to save some time for Congressman Andy Barr. I got to talk about the NVIDIA selling these high-end chips to China. I'm not for it. And China's reaction to it is bizarre. And then number two is I want to talk about even should these Chinese students, 600,000, be allowed into our school? I'm not happy with 200,000. Why would we go up that much? Brian Kilmeade Show. Hey, we are back, everybody. And I'd like to bring in Congressman Andy Barr. He's the chair of the Subcommittee on Financial Institutions, Foreign Affairs Committee, House Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the U.S. and Chinese Communist Party. Congressman, first off, before we talk about those things, let's tap into your foreign affairs. Where do you think we're heading in Venezuela?
Well, Brian, good to be with you. Look, the president did the right thing in designating these narco-terrorist groups, these cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. We have been inundated over the last number of years with the open borders policy of deadly narcotics that have killed literally a generation of Americans. The number one cause of death of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45 years old, these synthetic opioids. And so the president is recognizing this public health and national security challenge. And so he's getting tough, not only on China and terrorists and cartels in Mexico and in Central America, but also in Venezuela, the source of a lot of these drugs.
So having said that, if Maduro stays, he's going to come out stronger, or be under the perception that he withstood the pressure from 15% of our military. And yesterday, I know we had some fighter jets breach his airspace, but don't you think we got to find a way to get him out of there?
Well, regime change would be ultimately a step in the right direction, positive, but I think the number one national security and public health objective is to prevent the continuous flow of these deadly narcotics into our country, to interdict these vessels that continue to try and defy American military deterrence and send these drugs into our country. It's about time that we had a president like President Trump who takes this threat from these cartels and from Venezuela seriously, and I'm glad he's doing it.
So when critics say, and to be candid, I'm not one of them, that this is going to be like Libya and Iraq, a lot more difficult than people say, do you see a difference
between this and Iraq?
And Libya, an operation like what Barack Obama did in Libya?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I understand from the administration is the objective is to stop these drug runners and to stop the flow of illegal narcotics into our country. That is in the national security interest of the United States in protecting the American people.
All right.
Regime change. Yeah. Look, regime change would be positive for the people of Venezuela, but that is not the primary objective, as I understand the administration's policy.
Should it be, though? I mean, when you talk about a country that's sustaining Cuba, that allows Hezbollah, Iran, China, and Russia to run wild in its country, which is counter to us, should we not be pushing for Maduro to get out because he lost an election 70-30 and he just sits there?
No doubt, a bad actor in every respect, and certainly an ally of our adversaries. Look, I think we should bring to bear all of the tools in the toolbox, the diplomatic toolbox, whether it comes to sanctions, and we do have sanctions on Maduro. Look, Venezuela is a very oil-rich country, and American investment and into Venezuela would actually be a good thing to counter China. But ultimately, the United States will benefit greater in the long run if there is a change in leadership there. The question is, whether or not we want to actually intervene to that extent.
Right.
And I don't think that is the administration's policy.
We'll set up a trade deal with
maximum pressure on Maduro. And preventing these deadly drugs into our country, I think, is the right policy.
Yeah, we send him to Turkey for a leader to be named later. How about that? Let's talk about you are pushing for, on the verge of delivering the strongest China sanctions law in history and codifying President Trump's America First investment policy into law. Talk about that.
Yeah, so in the National Defense Authorization Act, we are codifying President Trump's America First investment policy. Unfortunately, Americans have been unwittingly financing the Chinese military-industrial complex, billions and billions of dollars annually through U.S. index funds, other passive investments, and then more direct investments like venture capital and private equity flowing into Chinese entities and technologies of national security concern. We are addressing this problem. We've given the Chinese access to our capital markets, the deepest, most liquid capital markets in the world. And that has actually helped finance the civil military fusion and the surveillance state in China. We should not be giving the Chinese the rope to hang us. We need to protect American investors, and we need to stop the flow of capital into China in ways that threaten our national security. So that's what the bill does that's included in the NDAA. It has three basic components. Number one, it authorizes the Treasury Department to impose tough sanctions on these Chinese military-industrial complex companies. Number two, it puts in place some significant restrictions on U.S. investment into technologies of concern like artificial intelligence, hypersonics, microelectronics, semiconductors, artificial intelligence that could be militarized. And then the third thing it does is it requires a periodic review by the U.S. government of these Chinese entities and whether or not they should be added to these sanctions lists. There's a lot of different lists across the government, from the Commerce Department to the Defense Department to the Treasury. We want to make sure that we're harmonizing that list as much as possible and making sure that we're targeting those Chinese military surveillance companies that threaten our national security.
Two things to cover yet. Real quick, should we be allowing NVIDIA to sell the top-level chips to China?
Well, the one thing that is not getting as much coverage in the media is the important national security screening that will happen as a prerequisite to the sale of those very sophisticated chips. So that is a very important kind of condition, a precondition to the sale of those chips. But there's no question about it. We, just like we need to screen outbound capital flows into China, we need to be very careful with and implementing export controls on these very sensitive chips. We are in a race, an AI race with the Chinese Communist Party, and we need to win that race. And we don't need to be sharing the most sophisticated technologies. We need to be leading and winning that race for AI dominance.
And Congressman, you're also pushing to put the President Trump on the $250 bill for our 250th birthday. Why not? You're not pushing anyone off. You're just creating one, right?
That's right. I mean, as we celebrate our 250th anniversary, let's.
I love it. Thanks so much.
When you look at what has happened to football in the United States, again, soccer in the United States, we seem to never call it that because we have a little bit of a conflict with another thing that's called football. But when you think about it, shouldn't it really be called? I mean, this is football. There's no question about it. We have to come up with another name for the NFL stuff. Yeah. It really doesn't make sense.
So for more on that and strong-arming the NFL to give up the name football, here's the guy that can make it happen. Alexi Lalas, also of Fox Sports. Alexi, have you made progress with Roger Goodell trying to get the name football and then just give him soccer, I guess?
Actually, Brian, by the way, it's great to see and hear you. I disagree with our president when it comes to this. I think that we should be proud and loud about calling it soccer. We should lean into it. And I think it makes us look at times weak or capitulating to change what is historically football here in the United States. It's not a problem. Don't ever apologize for calling it soccer. And that's what I would tell President Trump or anybody else out there. But he's also a very smart man in that moment, in that instance, in front of that audience, a global audience. He knows how to create a narrative. He knows how to create a story. He knows how to poke at the bear out there. And that's exactly what people are talking about. And it's fine. And look, ultimately, this is about spreading the news about what is coming next summer. And when it comes to President Trump, I think there is no more bigger fan for what is about to come next summer. I've called him, when all is said and done, I think he's going to go down as the soccer president in terms of the just sheer amount of soccer that emanates from the White House and the Oval Office and obviously from President Trump. And I think he is a smart politician and a smart man and recognizes the platform, the opportunity, and the responsibility for next summer, regardless of what people call it.
All right. So, Lexi, 94, we had the World Cup. It was in Las Vegas, the big draw. Yes, last week it was in Washington, D.C., and now the country is well aware of the magic of soccer. What did you think of the draw, the coverage, the pageantry, the celebrities? Bring us behind the scenes.
Well, it generated a tremendous amount of news, which is what it was designed to do. I was down there in D.C., and it was crazy from start to finish. Everywhere you looked, there was somebody else, whether it was former legends, whether it was celebrities, whether it was musicians, obviously politicians, and there was something for everybody on that stage, backstage, on the side of the stage, and everywhere else. But ultimately, the groups were decided, and so became very, very real for a lot of people, including the teams and the coaches who were there, as to who they're going to play. But I think it also kind of cut through into the mainstream so that everybody recognizes that in 180 some days, this is coming back to our shores. It is our responsibility and our opportunity next summer. And I think a lot of people that maybe didn't know about it now know about it. But on that stage, it was nuttiness from start to finish.
Right. So we know you explained it so effectively. We were in the pot with the number one seeds because we're the host country, and we do go in with we know we're going to play Australia, and we know we're going to play Paraguay, two teams we recently beat. On the third team, we're still waiting. But first, on those two games, your thoughts?
So when Group D, which is what the U.S. is going to be in, and keep in mind that there are 12 groups of 4 in the World Cup, and it's round robin in group play, so you'll play 3 games, and then the top 2 teams from your group go out, and then potentially a best third place teams. But listen, when I saw this group, I started to compare it in history. I'm an old guy. I started to compare it to all the other groups the U.S. has had in previous World Cups. I cannot, for the life of me, find another group that's even close in terms of salivating for opportunity here. Now, I know people don't like to say it's easy. All right, no group is easy. I get that, but there are groups that are easier. This is not just a winnable group, but I think you should expect your team under new coach Mauricio Pochettino to win this group. As you mentioned, Paraguay, Australia, and then a team to be named later in March from Europe. But all 3 games are going to be winnable. All 3 games you should expect your team to win and ultimately come out first in that group. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying they can't screw it up, but I'm sick and tired of low expectations when it comes to this team. And I don't think I'm being unfair by saying that they should win this group.
So here's the coach who was on CBS on Monday, I think it was, talking about the team. Go to the top one if you can, Eric.
The message that I received, some people say, "Oh, coach, I want to play for you," and he's playing I don't know where, in the rest of the world. But I think it's really tough because I think we have a pool of 70 plus players that we were using in the last year, and I think the competition is there.
What are you looking for? I want to know what
I'm looking for. The best of the things is to be able, the player, to let us to coach. Not to think too much, respect the rules, show commitment, because I think, and the most important, like you say, that was perfect. The right player to defend our flag, our badge.
Of course.
It's our culture and all that represent that society, that is America, that you are a winner.
Of course.
I am a winner too because I come from Argentina. But I think that is the most important, is to represent in the best way our values.
So that's interesting that he's tapping into American values as a coach from elsewhere. And you have told me, did you think the team's playing a lot better?
Yeah, I'm in a much more bullish place than I was even a few months ago. And at times I've been critical, I think fairly so, of Mauricio Pochettino, but I think I'm coming around to whatever madness there is. I think there is a method to it. But it's interesting, also in some of the interviews that Mauricio Pochettino has done, he's referenced the movie Miracle. I think he recognizes that there is a core ethos there when it comes to a national team and a team that's going to represent the United States. Isn't about the best players. It's about the best collection of players. And I think that's what he has gone about doing. And reconfirming the fact that it doesn't matter where you play, doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter who your girlfriend is or anything like that. All he cares about is you're going to run through a wall. All he cares about is there's a ruthlessness in your play. And so you could be a player from Major League Soccer, you could be a player that's playing over in Serie A. It doesn't matter to him. And I think ultimately when that team takes the field next summer, he will have done his due diligence and amassed the best collection of players to represent what I feel is the greatest country in the world. By the way, on our 250th birthday.
Right. So I'll know that they're ready to win if I see them singing the national anthem like other countries, that they care about it that much. Maybe somewhere in the flag. 5 years ago, we were hoping they would stand. Now we're just hoping they pay attention and maybe sing it. I know they know the words. A lot of times they put them on the scoreboard if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, you think it's a simple moment, and it is a simple moment, but it's incredibly powerful. And for example, I remember a couple of World Cups ago when Panama went to the World Cup for the first time. All right, they got their ass kicked. But it doesn't matter, because all I remember is in that moment when the camera panned down the line of players as they stood there waiting to play their first game in history, and they were singing that national anthem, and tears were streaming down the players' faces. I saw the pride that they had in their country, in their countrymen and women, and the opportunity on a global stage to represent their country. And we want that from a U.S. team. At times we have not seen that. I hope we see it this summer, and I hope that when people tune in, they see a team that they can fall in love with and they can be proud of from the moment that that song starts till the final whistle of the game.
Third, who could be that team, the third game? Is it Turkey, Kosovo, or Slovakia? And when do we find out?
Slovakia, Kosovo, Turkey, and we call it, by the way, it's Turkey A now. They have rebranded, so it's Turkey A, and then Romania. And those are all beatable teams. And yeah, they could come in and do some damage here. But again, you should be going to sleep tonight feeling much better about the chances of this U.S. team next summer relative to the group that they got down in D.C. at the draw.
So here's what I'm worried about. They picked the two most un-American cities in America, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Are they going to even be cheering for us, or is it going to be like an away game?
Seattle's going to Seattle, and I live in Los Angeles. Somebody's got to go, behind lines there and try to fight for what's common sense.
Would you play there? Let me ask you something. You know the teams we're playing. Do you really think we'll get a majority American audience? It's not like we're playing a South American team. Will they be cheering for us in Los Angeles?
Yeah. I do think that the U.S. is going to have a pro-U.S. crowd when it comes to, and keep in mind, first game, like you said, is against Paraguay at SoFi Stadium in L.A. Second game against Australia is up in Seattle, and that third game with that team to be named later is back in Los Angeles. And a lot of the games that the U.S. progresses through are going to be on the West Coast for the U.S. They've tried to regionalize to limit travel out there. Yes, I do think that there is going to be support. But to your point, for example, in Group A, South Korea, okay? South Korea has actually been placed in Group A, which is Mexico's group, which means that South Korea has to play all three of their group games down in Mexico. I didn't want to play South Korea in the United States because we've seen time and time again the incredible South Korean American community out there. They come out in droves, and the potential for it to be an away game, and this doesn't just apply to South Korea, it applies to a lot of teams. I think they're going to have some home games here just because of the diversity that we have when it comes to all the nationalities that we have here. It's very unique.
And we're talking to Alexi Lalas if you listen on the radio, but if you're watching the stream, Lexi's has a great podcast, and he's on television right now. So we're streaming together. So, Lexi, a couple other things. It's important to come in first, right? Don't just get through to the knockout round, which means one and done. You lose, you're out. So you got to come in first, because then you play that third place team if you're the best in the other group. So you want to avoid England, Argentina, Brazil, and Spain, right? Would you say those are the big four? Those are the monsters when you need the miracle-like victory?
Yeah, I'd put France in there too, certainly, in terms of the elite. And look, at some point, we're going to have to beat an elite team. But you want that pathway to get to that point as clear as possible. And keep in mind, this is the largest World Cup in history, okay? As we mentioned, 48 teams, 104 games. It also adds another knockout round. So there's a round of 32. And if the U.S. finishes first, they're going to get an quote-unquote easier opponent in that knockout round, in the round of 32, and then you win the round of 32, you get to the round of 16, which is always where the U.S. has kind of faltered, where we go up against teams that people assume are better than us. So I think there is a wonderful pathway for this U.S. team given the group that we have, but at some point, they're going to have to live up to the expectations that we have. Again, not unrealistic expectations, and do things that we haven't seen before.
So I don't like to catch you blindsided, but do we know their practice schedule? Do we know their friendly games that they have lined up building up to this?
Yeah, in March, they have Portugal and Belgium. And then right before the World Cup, which is a little hard because you're trying not to get hurt, they have Germany and Senegal. So some really good teams as far as warm-ups going forward. They will be, like I said, training in Southern California, in Los Angeles, because that will be their kind of home base, as a lot of teams will have home bases either in or around the cities that they're playing in. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a really interesting summer of soccer next summer.
Will you go out to the training sessions? And if you do, what do you look for, knowing that people are trying out as well as gelling?
Yeah, I mean, coaches don't like to give too much away. It's really interesting when they talk about training sites, because being sequestered and secluded is really important to a lot of these teams. And some of them are kind of there's too much viewing. And so they really like to be private and keep everything in-house before they get to the actual games. But to the extent that they will let us watch training, that's great, because you try to find some sort of little thing here. The interesting thing from this World Cup is I think that yours truly and those of us that do studio, rather than being kind of stagnant, I think we're going to be on the road a whole lot more. And that makes sense given the size of this World Cup with Canada and Mexico involved and all these different places and all these different host cities that are having games.
So what kind of per diem does Alexi Lalas get? I mean, what did you build into your contract when you travel?
Come on, man. This is a labor of love here. I would pay to be able to do this. I have the best job in the world. They can pry it from my cold, dead, redheaded American hands, and they're all coming. All the young ones are coming, my friend. But you know what? I can fight them off here, at least for a little longer.
Oh, you got a lot of time left. But I just can imagine. I need a suite. I need a penthouse. I need an ocean view. Does that sound familiar? Like some of the riders?
That's not me. I'm a man of the people, Brian. I'm here. I'm hanging out. I'm having beers. I mean, this is a party here. I want to be involved. Yes, I got to do my job, and I will do it well. But I also want to, kind of feel and smell and taste the sounds of a World Cup.
And lastly, this is just curious. I know that Barkley, and I don't think Shaq, but I know Barkley sometimes can be very critical in the NBA of players, and they get mad at him. You are also very outspoken. Have the players of different, that you have, now that you're a commentator, have they let you have it? Like, hey, I don't think you're being fair to me. Have they got mad at you when you actually go out and see them?
Sure. And it means you're kind of over the target if that's happening. I have had players, I have had coaches, I have had front office people, I have had wives, girlfriends, parents, grandparents, children, at some point come to me and vent their frustration with something that I have said. Oftentimes I will forget what I have said. And in that moment, and I'm sure Charles or anybody else would say, you just got to let them get it off their chest. And when they do, things are a whole lot better. And it comes with the territory. My job isn't to tell you what you want to hear.
Yep.
My job isn't to, sugarcoat anything. It is to be honest with the American people when it comes to what I see. You can agree, you can disagree. That's what makes America great. And then we go from there.
And do you still get very nervous when you talk to me, or is that you over that?
I'm a little bit starstruck each and every time that I come on your show, given your prowess and your stature in the industry. But you make it so comfortable for all of your guests that come on the show, and you're a soccer guy at heart.
So thanks for picking up when I said a year and a half ago that David Beckham knew the language when he came over because he spoke English, and you went to bat. I was being sarcastic because he only spoke British, and you were the only one to go, Brian's being sarcastic.
Oh, goodness. Well, I got your back, my friend. I got your back.
Appreciate it.
Hey, it won't be the last time you say something controversial. I mean, you're right there with me.
Yes, Google me. There you go. Alexi, thanks so much. Great job over the weekend. I also love the MLS Cup. I thought that was awesome. It looked for a while like Miami was on the ropes and they were done, and they ended up scoring 2 goals. And
congratulations to Messi and Beckham and Jorge Mas down there and what they've done. Pretty in pink down there.
Finally, Messi thinks he could break in his way. He's gone through such a cold streak. Alexi Lalas, thanks so much. Hey, welcome back, everybody. In about 20 minutes, we even open up the phones. But right now, I want to bring in Jared Cooney Horvath, neurologist and author of The Digital Delusion, How Classroom Tech Harms Our Kids' Learning and How to Help Them Thrive Again. This in the wake of the big move over the weekend, over the last 48 hours, and that is Australia banning all social media for anyone until 16 and under. And then we're seeing more and more schools ban phones all day long, and very little blowback. And in fact, it's not even discernible. Jared, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be here.
So, Jared, if I brought up 5 years ago, let's ban phones from the classroom and forget about social media for kids, that would have been a niche audience that supported me. How did things change?
I think we spent more time with our kids on these tools, and everything started to go haywire. I think parents kind of got sick of it, and more importantly for the educational sector, teachers got sick of it too. The amount of behavioral problems and emotional problems and developmental stunting we were seeing was just getting out of control. We've never seen anything like it in the past, so we figured something's got to be done. And a lot of it is kind of coming back to the tools we're using, this kind of tech stuff.
And you also don't believe, you don't even like the fact that, I know for a fact, so in my middle school, they tell everyone to get Chromebooks. So everyone gets a Chromebook. You have a problem with that too, don't you?
Okay, it's not a problem so much as it's just straight data. We've had data since the turn of about 2002 was when the first one-to-one laptop program really started. So that's kind of the marker where we say ed tech really started entering schools. And that was almost the exact same time we saw a downturn in basically every cognitive skill in the next generation. So believe it or not, Gen Z is the first generation in recorded history to be scoring less and lower on their parents than on measures of memory, attention, general IQ, creative ability, critical thinking, you name it, everything turned. And the only thing we can draw it back to is this dang tool we brought into the classroom.
Is it because the act of writing notes with your hand, is that part of it? That's how you remember things, to write it out?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of biological mechanisms that we have for learning. You can assume we've evolved 150,000 years to learn in one very particular way. And tech, by and large, just doesn't align with that way. So exactly like you said, one idea is if you type notes out, most people will start doing what they just call verbatim typing. Basically, a stenographer, hear a word, write a word, which means you remember nothing. But when you're handwriting notes, what's happening is, by definition, you have to summarize. You have to make sense of what's coming at you in order to get it down on paper. Then it becomes deeper. It becomes a little bit more you, and all of a sudden you learn it. It's not just writing. It's an act of actual exploration and learning. So all these kind of analog methods that we've been using in the past are just simply more aligned to biology, work better than a lot of the digital versions of those methods.
So, for example, you even like reading a book or reading something with paper as opposed to reading a book online?
Yeah, believe it or not, so one of the key aspects of human memory is space. Where in space did something occur? That becomes part of the memory we form. So if any of your listeners right now, if you are avid readers, you'll recognize this. When you finish reading a book, you might not remember verbatim every word you just read, but you will remember where in the book something occurred. Like your favorite scene, you'll be able to flip right to it. Oh, it's the left page, top left side, hand side, halfway through. When we read on a screen, there is no spatial location. The words start at the bottom of the screen, go through the middle, go out the top. An entire aspect of human memory just gets dumped. So this is why whenever I work with college freshmen, all the research is really heavy on this. If they say, hey, what is the number one study technique you can tell me? One thing to make learning better, buy a printer. Change nothing else about your life, but read on paper versus a screen. You will remember more, comprehend better than we do on this device.
Okay, so
here.
not only writing, but reading on a paper rather than on a screen. Even though you can make notes on that screen, you're just not physically, you don't know where it is in the book.
Exactly. It all just becomes that kind of matter of spacing. If you try and annotate on a screen, you kind of lose it. So what we find is that at about the 5-minute point of reading online, most people will switch to just skimming. We can track how their eyes move, and they basically just start looking down lines to look for keywords, in which case you're not really reading for learning anymore. But if you want to hear something kind of scary about this, though, by the way, so the SATs, chances are we've all taken the SATs. When we were all growing up, the SATs had a reading comprehension section. Basically, it was read 5 750-word passages, answer 10 to 12 questions about each one, off you go. Last year, the SATs moved online. It became a digital version, and we know people can't really read online. So what happened is the new reading comprehension test, if your kids take the SATs, instead of having long passages, they will now have 54 single sentences of about 75 words each, with one question tied to each sentence. And we're calling that reading comprehension. So rather than adapting the tool to fit what we want from our kids, we're adapting our kids to fit to how the tool works, and redefining terms that we've been using for decades to mean one thing to mean something much lesser. So that worries the daylights out of me.
I mean, it shows you too. They know what you know. They know that kids aren't. It's not so they can't even pretend that they don't agree with you.
There's no hiding it. And one of the scariest things is, so with all these national and international tests, we know scores have been going down since 2002. But what we don't know, and what it's hard to find out, is that once tests go digital, so like PISA is an international test that went digital in 2015, NEEP went digital in like 2022. Anytime a test goes digital, scores drop significantly. Wow. It's just what we do is we use statistics to do what's called renorming, and we basically hide it. So if scores are getting worse, you can possibly add on another 5 to 10% worse. That's genuinely what's going on once we move on to screens. We just don't see it. Thank you, statistics.
So how long has this information been available?
Believe it or not, the very first meta-analysis we have on ed tech basically was from 1962, and it has the exact same effect size then as it does today. So we've known for about 6 decades that these tools aren't good for learning. But it was really only about the turn of the century that the digital stuff really started showing up, and we're like, look, that was when everyone said it will be better. The new computers will be better. Give us 1 more year. Give us more software, and it's just never gotten better. There's a big researcher I work with. His famous quote is, he says, digital technology is the educational revolution we've been waiting for 50 years, and we're going to be waiting another 50. It's just not working.
Jared Cooney, Horvath, is with us now, neurologist and author of The Digital Delusion, How Classroom Tech Harms Our Kids' Learning and How to Help Them Thrive Again. Before we get to the how to help them thrive again, why do you think there's so many Chromebooks in the school or so many laptops in the school still if these stats are so available?
There's two things on that. Is one, most people don't have access to the stats, or they just don't care about them. But on the back of that, I'd also say data, believe it or not, really never changes minds. Like if you think about something like asbestos, we knew for a couple of decades that if you worked with asbestos, you were going to have a chance of cancer much higher than people who didn't work with it. But nobody cared. It was only once we had a mechanism, once researchers came in and said, oh, look, little pieces of asbestos can lodge into your lung, cause tumors. That's the mechanism. That's when people started to change, laws started to happen, things worked. So I think with a lot of this ed tech data, a lot of people don't know the data, and they also don't know the mechanisms. They don't know enough about human learning to recognize why it would be bad. So they just kind of keep going about their business, assuming because we were told it was good, it's going to be good. And if you want to get really cynical about it, at the end of the day, big tech is big tech. It's a company, and companies exist to make money. I don't fault anyone for that. That's what they do. When they give free Chromebooks, when they give free laptops to kids, it looks as though they're being altruistic. They're not. What happens is when you learn on a device, your learning becomes tied to that device. It's an issue called transfer. It becomes very difficult for you to move your learning away from that device. So in a very real sense, these people know that if I get students using them now, for the rest of their life, they will be tied to this machine in order to access the learning they did as kids. So it is a really strong business move on their part to say, hey, every kid needs one of these, and now I've just built basically a lifelong customer.
Right, and that's it's a profit margin. I'm not going to.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing would be, this is just me talking. Is it better for a teacher to go back to a chalkboard, or are these?
But if you just look at the straight statistics, yes. But I think there's a good kind of line we can draw here is you've got kind of teacher-led tech and you've got student-facing tech. Anytime students are using the tech, put it away. It's not working. If a teacher is driving the tech, like we've got a PowerPoint design, or I'm showing you things on a board, so long as I have complete control over what you're seeing and thinking, then we can use these tools effectively. So I think teachers still have an argument to be made.
Good. Okay. So tell me how, if people listening right now, they might even be teachers or principals, parents, when they have to pick a school. Now you have school choice in a lot of these states. How do we get the kids to thrive again?
Step one is get tech out of the classroom. I think banning cell phones is step one. Step two is going to be the wider. We don't need the laptops. We don't need the tablets. That goes away. So if you're looking at a school, say, one of the first things I look for is, do you have a computer lab? So by all means, we need to teach computer skills, but there's a difference between curriculum and pedagogy. Curriculum is what we teach. Pedagogy is how we teach. To say that we need to teach computers, fine. To say we now need to teach all classes, math, English, science, through a computer, that's pedagogy, that's wrong. So typically, if a school has a computer lab where we have computers, but they're set up in a very specific space, that means they're very deliberate with tech. That means the teachers are explicitly choosing, today we will get up, we will leave our classroom, I've signed us out, we will go use tech. So those are the schools that tend to be tech intentional. You know they're using it well. But any school who's advertising to you, their selling point is every kid gets a laptop. That's one of the worst things we can think of when it comes to student learning. So try and walk away from those if you can.
And Jared, what about AI worries you the most, if anything?
AI is a production tool. AI is a tool for experts to do what's called offloading. So think about, like, I'm a statistician. Well, not a statistician. I'm a researcher, so I've had to study stats all my life. I can do stats. I just hate doing it. It takes me about 2 hours to do one stat set. I don't want to do it. So what I can do is I can use AI to do that in 2 minutes instead. But the only reason it works is because I can vet the output immediately. I know so much about the process that as soon as AI spits something out, I can say, yep, that's accurate, or no, that's wrong. Uh-oh, I must have typed in something different. Boom. So it's an expert production tool. It is not a learning tool for novices. When you let students use this as a means of trying to achieve expertise, they start offloading skills that they never developed in the first place, which means they will never develop the skill itself. So by all means, they can copy paste what it says to them, but that's not a learning tool. So long as we remember AI is a production tool for experts, not a learning tool for novices, then we can think about when's the best time to bring that in.
Should AI be part of the curriculum that kids should learn about?
No. One of the weirder things about digital tools is they're so wickedly easy that, I mean, think about it. I'm 40 plus. AI came out 3 years ago. I can use it. It's a box. You type words in it. It's not hard. So if you teach a kid how to use a tool, they'll be able to use that tool, but they won't be able to use any other tool. If instead you teach a kid how to think and learn, and then you bring the tool in, they'll be able to use any tool and they'll be able to adapt. So the key to adaptation with an unknowable future and changing work structure is a generalized K through 12 education. Do not teach kids tools, teach kids how to think. Then they can adapt that to any tool that comes their way.
And AI is potentially going to replace your thinking. I know it.
Already doing it.
Yeah, I know when it comes to directions. I used to be really good at directions. I would always check a map before I leave. I would recognize things. Now I don't even think about where I'm going.
Isn't it great? And then if you visit a new city and you use your GPS, you go home and you're like, I couldn't tell you anything about that city. I was not paying attention to anything.
Yeah. So I already see how I used to be good with directions, but no one will know it because we're all stuck on apps. And I know if I don't have them, I feel lost.
And then we redefine it. All of a sudden, we'll redefine good spatial awareness as someone who can use a GPS. And we'll never recognize that, no, 20 years ago, that meant something else. And it meant something much bigger, much more important than the way we're using that term now. And that's my big fear is the more we use tech, we're going to start redefining educational terms into something much less. And all of a sudden, we're going to have a generation that is beneath any other generation before, but we're not noticing it because, hey, at least they're aligning with the tools.
And my last question is, are you optimistic that things are changing your direction, that people are understanding it's not your agenda, these are the facts?
Yeah, and that's, I think, Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation was kind of that watershed moment where we've been trying for a couple of years to get cell phones out of school, and people finally said, oh, we can do that? And I think with that domino falling, ed tech, this larger ed movement in education, is going to start falling after it. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I am optimistic.
In a little bit, isn't it counterintuitive? Progress, right? Horses, cars, planes. Make the plane better, make it faster. Okay, we got the digital evolution, make it better. Give me an iPad, put away the pad, keep your spiral notebook. But all of a sudden, when it comes to learning, hold off. So that's interesting.
Back.
It's an anomaly in the way we're used to living life, right?
Yeah, and you got to think all the tools you just mentioned, they're for adults, they're for experts, they're for us. Kids aren't mini adults. A lot of the times we try and treat kids like they're little us. They're the same as us, they're just smaller with smaller hands. They are nothing like us. And I think we're forgetting that what it takes to become an effective adult is very different than what it means to be an effective adult. Right. And what we're doing with Progress Up Here doesn't change what they're going to need to do to achieve adulthood, humanhood in this realm out here.
And superintendents are being pushed to take on this tech. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Now, it's funny. What you'll see is most of the leaders are the biggest tech advocates. So I work primarily in schools, and I would estimate, and this is just a personal estimation, this isn't real data, 70% of the teachers I've worked with are totally over tech. They hate it. They just use it because it's the higher ups, the people who aren't actually in the classroom. The people without feet on the ground are the ones pushing this. But as soon as you're in a classroom and you're the one who has to deal with the repercussions, ask any teacher who's been in a classroom for longer than 10 years, are your kids doing better or worse today than 10 years ago? To a man, they will tell you worse. So the teachers know, it's just the leaders who haven't quite figured it out yet.
But you did, and thanks so much. Go pick up his book, especially if you're a parent and you're wondering about these same topics, The Digital Delusion, How Classroom Tech Harms Our Kids' Learning. Jared, Cooney, Horvath, thanks so much, Doctor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
All right, great conversation. Back in a moment.